Man, I'll tell you what, NEKO rigging is one of the coolest things out there. And you know, a technique is really, really cool when companies start making baits specifically for that technique. And a flick shake worm is one of the most popular worms out there. I mean, it's caught millions of bass, but they have made a NEKO flick. And what they've done is they've just made the tail of the worm, or the head of the worm, base of the worm, a lot thicker so it can hold that weight, but it's still got that crazy tail action of a flick shake. And plain and simple, this is a fish catcher, and it catches fish quite often that you probably just don't think will bite. You know, those skittish fish. This is just something a little bit slower, a little bit different, and it's got a ton of advantages. Easy, dude. Man, the pickup on this bait is ever so subtle. This is the kind of technique, I mean, I'm throwing a fluorocarbon leader, but I definitely want to throw braided line just for that extra feel. I mean, you give any bit of slack to that bait, and if you're throwing fluorocarbon or monofilament, you're not going to feel that fish at all. But with the braided line, just that subtle little thunk. And every time I catch one of them like that, it just makes me think, I mean, imagine if I was throwing not braid. You know, imagine if I was throwing just regular line, that little subtle little think on braid. What you feel on fluorocarbon or on monofilament is this. Nothing. But with braid, even if you've got, that's a chunk right there. Even if you have got the tiniest, most subtle little pickup, you were gonna feel it on the braided line, and it definitely gives you an advantage for these bad boys. See ya, dude. Sauntering away. Look at that fish right there. Man, I can't stress how important it is to throw braided line with this technique. You know, what it does is it makes up for your failures. I mean, it's really easy to go out there and say, hey, I'm gonna feel every single bite. And you are, if you're gonna keep your line tight all the time. But when you're throwing this bait, it also is an advantage to put a little slack in that line when you're shaking that bait. And that slack becomes a disadvantage when you're throwing other lines, because you're not gonna feel that hit. The braided line just makes you a better angler. It fixes your mistakes. I mean, if you think you're gonna keep your line tight perfectly all the time, you don't need it. But if you're me, you want to put every single favor you can in your court, and that's exactly what fishing braided line is going to do with this technique. There you go. Easy, dude. Bulldogger. Pretty decent one right there. I mean, we're catching a lot of numbers on this bait, and that's one of the cool things about it. I mean, you know, soft plastic stick baits like that, like a Senko style bait, kind of the same deal. This is one of those baits where you are gonna catch some numbers. So you get to a new lake, it's your first time ever fishing it, it's a pretty smart bait, but it's not the kind of bait that you're gonna go out and find the fish. When you get in an area with those fish, you wanna slow down and throw that little NEKO flick. And as you can see, they like munching it.